Hello and good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. It's your buddy Domino Chris. Welcome into Follow Everton and the pre-match show for this weekend's fixture against Man United at Old Trafford. Today's press conference by Sean Dyche was not really that long and quite frankly not too interesting other than a very funny line he made about Harry Kane. In which case, a reporter's asked Sean Dyche about Decore and if he'd apologize to the team or not after what had happened. And quite honestly, I was expecting him to say, yeah, he had a little bit of a word in the locker room or whatever the case was. But basically, no, he said, he doesn't really need to apologize, but I was really worried he might have snapped his eyelash talking about Harry Kane and said that just would have been tragic. And that popped me pretty good. I think everyone got a good laugh out of that. Not too much said, though. The basic stuff. He wasn't really asked about. A reporter did allude to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but basically said, I just assume he's injured, and then moved on to the next question, which, I mean, we're kind of all assuming the same thing at this point. But basically what happened is Dominic Calvert-Lewin's apparently still training on the grass. No update. Nothing really expected there. Andros Townsend, he said, was a bit further distant. The one key thing I did take away was when asked about Abdoulaye Doucouré and how much time he's going to miss, I believe, was basically said, we're not sure because this is an opportunity for someone else to play. That was very interesting to me and perhaps very telling because, I mean, we all know who we want to see. We've talked about James Garner for a long time. It's kind of alluding to the fact that, well, the next man up mentality sure applies, but if this person plays well, perhaps Doucouré's lost a spot. We're not really sure. Of course, only time will tell when it comes to that sort of thing, but it was very, very interesting at least to see Dyche say that rather than just say Doucouré will come back because he has been playing well, which makes this suspension all the more frustrating. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us in the chat. I see you over there, Eugene, Mr. Toffees, Mr. Blue Skies. David's in here as well. Paul, what's up, buddy? Jan should be joining pretty soon. I wanted to get this thing going live. Mark just jumps in with a prediction right away. I love it. I wanted to get this thing live, though. I'm sure we will see Jan in just a bit, provided that he's okay to come on and hopefully nothing came up for that matter. But we should see Jan here in just a bit. Hope so, at least. Fingers crossed. We appealed the Doucouré 3-game ban decision. I don't know. I would assume that we might have. That's just a guess. Again, I don't know if it's not like in America, we have the coach's challenge in football where if you challenge a play, you lose a timeout. I don't think this is anything like we're not going to get in trouble for appealing. So from that perspective, I don't see why we wouldn't appeal, but I don't have anything on that. Barry, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Frank Lampard. What do you say? Okay. I'm gonna back off the obvious, which is what are they thinking? That I think that's everyone's instinct, right? What are Chelsea thinking by bringing Frank Lampard back? All Frank Lampard did apparently is show that he shouldn't be a Premier League manager, right? If it's a very clear thing, and I guess it's not 100% because let's just say he does somehow find a way to beat Real Madrid and everybody else and win the Champions League, okay, then we're having another conversation. But the more likely scenario is that doesn't happen, right? Then it becomes he's just there for the rest of the season. It's a very interesting scenario for a manager like Frank Lampard, who has been a permanent manager on more than one Premier League club basis, right? Why would he take that? Well, that's a very obvious answer. It's Chelsea. It's his former club. It's the one he played most of his entire career with. Not all, but most. And so when a club asks you to join, you're not really going to say no, especially with what they have going on right now, still being in the Champions League. Like, yes, they will drift the rest of the Premier League season, likely won't qualify for anything. I want to let me get the table up actually because I want to see where they are exactly. I know they're in the bottom half, but how far they actually are off these European slots, because I want to say they're not too close if I remember correctly. Yes, they're in 11th on 39 points. Oh, they're a little bit closer than I thought. Okay, Brighton in 6th with 46 points. Chelsea, Brighton have a game in hand on Chelsea for that matter, and of course Chelsea are chasing a lot of teams, and quite frankly, Chelsea haven't looked that good lately anyway. The argument against Lampard is going to be a lot from a tactical perspective, but Chelsea are having trouble scoring goals. I'm curious to see. I understand Chelsea have talent, but what is Lampard going to bring in that is going to get them off the goal schneid? I have no idea there. Now, in terms of galvanizing a squad and saying the right things and trying to get the best out of the team, who knows? Frank Lampard is a decent talker. I did always like what he said at Everton. He was saying the right things. It seems like he was trying to appeal to the fans and trying to do the right things. He just didn't, in my opinion, have it to get the best out of his players. Somebody said the players didn't really respect Graham Potter. That's why he lost the team. I don't see Frank Lampard going into Chelsea and commanding a lot of respect in the dressing room. That's just my instinct because I feel like he lost the team here at Everton, particularly Abdoulaye Doucouré. But it is what it is. I have no idea how Frank's going to do. It's a very interesting appointment. It's going to make these other appointments very interesting as well. We all know Leicester are still looking for a manager. Excuse me, even though I hear that Rafa Benitez. I keep hearing that name, but I still refuse to believe that Rafa Benitez would ever accept a contract that would only be for the rest of the season. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. I do know Leicester needs to figure it out quick because they have a lot of crucial games coming up. They're sitting in the bottom three. They have a bottom three matchup coming up this week against Bournemouth. So that's another story for another day, though. But I did want to touch on the Lampard stuff since it did actually become official just a few hours ago. I've had a few, just got a qualification for helping the community to add my CV. Hey, congratulations, Peter. But keep it a little PG if you've had a few. We know, we don't like swearing over here. We would never effing do that. Again, thanks to everybody for joining. We are going to have a good time today. And you know what? Let's get to what we're here for because like I said, I didn't have too much to touch on the press conference. So we've touched that just a bit. And then we'll move on to Man United. So I want to touch Man United. We've got the early kickoff this weekend. It's 12:30 local time. It's at Old Trafford, where we haven't gotten a win in a while, but against Everton, neither have Man United. The last 5 at Old Trafford, the last 3 of them have been draws. We had the 1-1 last season with the goal from Andros Townsend. The year before was the COVID year with no fans. The very dramatic 3-3 game. If I remember correctly, we were down 2-0. Tied that one up very early in the second half. I don't remember who got the first, but I want to say the second goal was James Rodriguez. And then, of course, the goal at the death off a free kick from Luca Digne. Dominic Calvert-Lewin puts that one in, and it's 3-3. Absolutely dramatic game. That was actually my moment of the season in terms of the one I reacted the most against because there were a few candidates, but one, the Richarlison goal at Anfield, amongst a couple of others. But when Calvert-Lewin scored that goal at the last kick of the game, it was like I was actually at the ground. But and then the previous season, 2019-20, some will remember this one, the 1-1. Oh, you know what? I have that game wrong. I was going to say it was 1-1, but it was also 1-1 at Goodison. When we played United was the one the goal was chalked off right at the end for being offside that wasn't, and the VAR controversy and what have you. But it was also 1-1 at Old Trafford. Everton took the lead early. I remember that game distinctly because I was supposed to meet a lot of friends out for that one because it was the day before my birthday. I overslept, missed the entire first half. And then as soon as I walk in the pub, United equalized at 1, and I was immediately ordered to get the F out of the pub. So, but the last 3 at Old Trafford have been draws. That's at least a little bit optimistic for Everton in terms of them going into the ground and actually being able to get a result. Now, yes, we did play them in the FA Cup this year at Old Trafford. That one did not go as well. I try to not mix those two together or really any tournament that goes in with the league because it is kind of a different feel. Sometimes you play different squads and it's a different game. So I've only put down the league games, but I do remember that game earlier this year. And it's a positive one for me because even though it was one where we had a couple of bad losses right before that, it's one where we wanted to go in and get a win. Well, we always want to win, obviously. That goes without saying. But it was one where we just wanted to see anything positive. I felt that the team showed fight during that game. We had a late equalizer chalked off, and then United put one in very late and make it 3-1. But for all intents and purposes, that game was a 2-1 game that could have been equalized at 2 and just wasn't. So, yes, I understand losses are losses and close doesn't really matter. But at least coming out of that game, I felt that Everton showed a lot of effort, and it was at least a decent away performance at the time when all we were putting in was the most dreadful away performances you can think of. So I'm going to take that and try to be positive going into this weekend. I know how our away form has been recently, but I also know in our last 2 away games, we have put 2 goals in each game. So it gives me a little bit of optimism. United do leave their defense a little bit open. They've scored 42 goals this season in the league. They've allowed 37 in 28 league games. Now, the goal difference is going to be a little bit skewed given the massive 7-0 loss at Anfield. I understand that. But the point being, their defense is still nothing to write home about. I believe Luke Shaw might have come off injured this past game. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays. And if not, who are we actually going to see? Are we going to see Harry Maguire? Are we going to see Diego Dalot? Who are we actually going to see? Because United's defense does change fairly often. Now, again, they have only scored 42 goals, and I say only. We would kill for 42 goals, but that's another story in and of itself. But United recently haven't exactly set the net on fire. I mean, just looking at their last few games, and I'll even cover all competitions here, not just the league. 1-0 win over Brentford in their last game. The one previous, they lose to Newcastle at St. James's Park, 2-0. They do defeat Fulham in the FA Cup, but that was after Fulham had that double red card. So Fulham are down to 9 men, and United win that game 3-1. But they even get a late one in that. So it really was a 2-1 game that they had struggled to put the ball in the back of the net. The previous league game was a 0-0 draw to Southampton at home. I remember that one for a couple of reasons. That's the one where Casemiro got sent off, which, by the way, I thought Casemiro was going to be playing tomorrow, but apparently, or Saturday, I should say, but apparently he is still suspended. I'll get to that in just a bit. But against Southampton, Casemiro sent off early, horrible challenge. Southampton really, not only do they not score, but they barely even threaten the 10-man United. So to their credit, United did hold the fort down. I don't really know what to make of that because this might sound ridiculous, but given United's players, you'd almost expect the 10-man United to really threaten Southampton. But after they went down to 10, it just kind of became a boring game. So I guess we'll have to look past that one. The league game before that, obviously the big one, the 7-0 loss at Anfield. I mean, no matter what happens, you should never be losing 7-0 in the Premier League. I don't care who you are, but especially for a team like Man United, that was the one where everybody thought Bruno gave up amongst many other United players. Who knows? But their form in the Prem hasn't exactly been the most stellar as of late. But I will say this. They did put a win on the board this past game against Brentford. Quite honestly, they dominated most of the narrative that game. Brentford had a couple of decent chances in the second half, including one breakaway. But other than that, it was mostly United controlling it. That's what I'm a little bit afraid of this weekend because, again, yes, the last three at United have been draws. But if you remember back to last season, the 1-1 draw, I feel like we were a little bit lucky to come out of there with of Old Trafford with a point last season. Great goal by Townsend. It was basically a reverse type of goal from the one that Alex Iwobi scored against Newcastle this past season as well, when we were down to 10 men, kind of a pass towards the middle, and he crosses it the other way, sends De Gea the wrong way for Townsend, and does the Ronaldo celebration in the corner. But the point I'm making is I'm worried that might be one where Everton lack in the possession, allow a goal, and it's one of those where we try to chase the game and then don't know which way to go, which way to pass. Hope I'm wrong, but it also is going to be interesting because we're not really sure what lineup we're going to see. Now, the last four matches, we've seen the exact same lineup. We're running a 4-5-1, Gray up top, Iwobi on the right side, McNeil on the left, our normal three midfielders, yada, yada on defense. Now, we're losing Decore, okay? The question is going to be, are we going to run a 4-4-2 with Gray and Sims up top? Are we going to try and keep a 4-5-1? Are we going to move Iwobi to the middle, put Gray on the right? I don't think we're going to see Damari Gray in the midfield, and the reason being, had Sean Dyche wanted Gray in the midfield, I feel like we would have seen this beforehand. He doesn't like Damari Gray's lack of defensive capabilities, right? And I get that. But if we see Gray in the midfield, I feel like we might struggle in that sense. And I don't think Dyche wants to see that. I don't know if he's ready to put Sims up top for a full game again. Maybe he is. I know he did this at Anfield. Excuse me. I know he did it at Anfield, but he hasn't done it since. There are a lot of scenarios as to how this team could look on Saturday. One that I do expect to see, the normal Pickford and net, Seamus Coleman on the right side, Michael Keane's not going anywhere, James Tarkowski, and then Ben Godfrey on the left, because that has been working for the most part. Of course, you can make the case for Mikalenko, but I think he kind of likes Mikalenko coming off the bench. I believe he's been a sub in at least two of the last three, and maybe all three of the last three games in about the 70 to 75th minute. So it'll be that should be normal. Dwight McNeil is going to be on the left side, and then it becomes questionable. You're going to have Onana. You're going to have Ghana. Are we going to see James Garner come into play where Decore was playing? Are we going to see Iwobi sort of come into that and then James Garner on the right with Damari Gray up top? Or are we actually going to see Gray and Sims up top? I've been clamoring to see Gray and Sims up top for about 6 weeks now, but I've also been a subscriber to the notion of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I've been fine with what lineups Dyche has put out to start recently. But your guess is as good as mine. Personally, I think we're going to see James Garner start, given that when he did come on, even though it was just 12 to 15 minutes, he did look very good, more than confident, making the right passes, making the right plays. And so I think that we might be ready to see a almost full James Garner, because it doesn't have to be a planned 90-minute player. You can plan a 60 to 65 minutes. You can have him on a minutes count or a pitch count if you like. That's okay. But Dyche also has to subscribe to that rather than getting a little bit stubborn with his subs when the time comes. Old Trafford was 2013. That's correct. 86-minute goal by Brian Oviedo. If you haven't seen that one, I'm sure we've all seen it. But if you haven't seen it recently, there are a lot of cool fan-taken videos on YouTube of that one at Old Trafford, because that was the first. We haven't won a lot at Old Trafford in the last, couple decades, 20, 30 years, whatever the case. So fans ate that one up. a lot. And that is the last win. It was in the league. It was a great night, and we hope to get that one again. Keenan Sims up front. Get in there. I'm okay with it. It's funny how many people have come out, especially Seamus Coleman, this week and said, Keno's one of the best finishers that we see in training. I mean, I'm never, I know it's not real. I know Ryan's talked about how he wants to see Yerry Mina up front. And hey, if we weren't scoring any goals, I guess, we'll try almost anything once. What's up, Richo? Good to see you. I think we can get points versus Man U. I think we get at least a draw out of the game. A lot of folks think we're going to get nothing, but that's one of those where maybe I'm being a little too optimistic, because if you ask me if we're going to lose, I'm never going to say yes. I don't care who we're playing. I mean, come on. I'm still even naively optimistic every season that we're going to go into Anfield and win, 2-3-0 or whatever the case. But you know how that goes. Sean Dyche will have a plan tomorrow. In Dyche we trust at this point, because he's not done everything right. He's not perfect, but I have seen him do a lot more things right than wrong, at least for me, especially the way he's handling himself in the press conferences and the things he's saying, the things he's doing on the pitch, with the exception of a few subs every now and then. And not sure. Would be fascinating to see Michael Keane up front and Gray in the Decoy role. He can header and hold the ball up well, and we all seeing he can finish. Right now, I think Keane's working fine on defense. I mean, and you got to remember, I still to this day think that there's something more wrong with Yerry Mina than we're being told. And if it's not something wrong, then it's actually a thing where we're not going to play him because we're planning on selling him. There is something that we're not being told, because I still think that there should be a place for Yerry Mina if he's fit. But I don't. I like Gray where he is now. I think we're getting the most out of Gray where I don't want to mess with that too much. Having said that, though, Gray has shown pace in a number of positions over the past couple of years, so I don't think he would be a poor player in another position. We're obviously trying to get the best out of them that we can. Getting to the last five and most recent form for each team. Of course, we know Everton have drawn their last two, sandwiched in there with a win, a draw, and a loss against Arsenal. Hard to believe that Arsenal game was only 5 games ago, but it seems like months ago with that the 4-0 loss at the Emirates. But it's a 4-game unbeaten streak, and it's not been the most pretty of games by any means, but it's 6 points from 4 games, 6 points from 12, 4 in a row on the bounce, and so we're hoping to make that 5. Yes, a win would be a bonus. I hate being in the position where I'm hoping for a draw, because you always want your team to win. But it does feel like in an atmosphere as hostile as Old Trafford, in a place that we've struggled to get points, especially wins, I feel like we should be happy with a draw. That's more of the we'll see how the game plays out mentality, because you got to remember, we all expected and wanted a win. Maybe not expected. I expected a win. We all wanted a win against Spurs, but given how the game played out, a draw felt like a win, especially going down to 10 men, giving up a penalty, etc. But as I mentioned, United's last 5 in the league, a direct symmetry of each other: win, loss, draw, loss, win. So 7 points from 15, not exactly setting the world on fire. And in the table, United really need these points to keep up with these teams, especially after dropping the points against Newcastle, as they did a few nights ago on the 2-0 loss at St. James Park. So Newcastle have leapfrogged United. Both got wins yesterday. Newcastle with a huge win at West Ham, 5-1, and then United took care of business 1-0 at home. If it comes down to goal difference, it really, I don't have to tell you how much of a difference that is. 26 goal difference for Newcastle and plus only 5 for United. Tottenham are not really on their heels anymore. The Spurs have played one more game than both of these teams, and they have a 3-point deficit, and they're not going to catch Newcastle on goal difference. So for all intents and purposes, I think, especially given the way Spurs have looked just in general lately, I think Spurs are out of the top 4 race. That will be interesting to see how these two teams, or really Spurs and United, handle themselves, because Spurs aren't in any other competitions where United are. And I say that because that's going to affect United's lineup and formation this weekend, I think, to an extent, because if we look at United's upcoming fixtures here, sorry, just let me get this back up just so everybody sees what I'm looking at. Everton here, and then midweek next week, United have their Europa League quarterfinal leg 1. Then it's going to Forest, where Forest has not been an easy out for any team all season. They did drop points again, they did lose to Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, but Forest rebounded with a draw at home. No matter who they're playing, Forest are going to be a tough out when they're playing at the City Ground. United should be no different. The Chelsea game did get postponed, so that one's going to get moved because of the FA Cup semifinal against Brighton, but that just goes to prove how more vital this fixture congestion is, because now they're in the FA Cup semifinals along with Brighton. They're in the Europa League quarterfinals. If they win that, they'll have another set of games after that, which I want to say will be mid-May. I'm not exactly sure, because I think we looked that up. That's when West Ham's fixtures were going to be, had they advanced in the Europa Conference League as well. But either way, United have 10 league games left, alongside the Europe games and the FA Cup. So it's one of those where, are we going to see a full United squad? Are we going to see limited minutes? Will Erik ten Hag start to make subs earlier than he normally would? It's always going to be in the back of your brain, because at this point, there are a lot of important things. Yes, United have won a trophy this season. They won the League Cup. Of course, they want to win the FA Cup. Of course, they want to win the Europa League. So now it becomes, what's more important? My thought is that since they have won this trophy already, and maybe this was going to be the case regardless of if they've won the trophy, but especially given the fact that they have won the League Cup already, Erik ten Hag is going to put top four significantly before anything else. So I think that the league games will matter more than these other competitions. But that all sounds good, but you never know what he's being told behind the scenes. Point being, it will be interesting to see how he handles, I don't want to call it pressure, but certain game situations will dictate certain substitutes, right? Let's say United are in a drawing position. Let's say it's 1-1 on 75, 80 minutes, something like that. Will Erik ten Hag be inclined to go for the win, or are we going to just settle, kind of play it safe, not really get extremely violent with the tackles, play it from the back? What are we going to do to try and preserve this game in particular to get ready for the next game? Because the season's going to end when the season's going to end. So all of these fixtures do have to get clumped in. United are going to have games at some point, probably every 3 to 4 days, at least for a few weeks. Something to think about. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to view it, Everton don't have that problem. I wish we did, but I also hope we just stay up. I think that's goes without saying that is the most important thing. So Casemiro is still out for this game. I didn't look up, or I didn't get a clear answer on exactly why. I just looked up a couple of these United sites that were saying he's next eligible to play against Forest next weekend. Now, my thought, it's a 4-match ban, but United, since that fixture, have played 4 overall matches. One of them was a Europa League match, and one of them was an FA Cup match. My thought is that it must be a 4-match domestic ban, and if anybody knows that in the comments, please let me know, because they have played 2 league games, an FA Cup game, and then the Europa League game. So if it's just an England domestic 4-match ban, that would mean the last of those 4 is this fixture this weekend against Everton. But regardless of whatever the case is, Casemiro won't be playing this weekend. You'd like to think that can only help Everton. Yes, United do have a little bit of a deeper bench of players when compared to a side like Everton at the moment, but who knows what we're going to see in the middle, if we're going to see Fred, if we're going to see, which by the way, still one of my favorite names in football, Fred. But I don't know if we'll see him or who we will see in the midfield. Marcus Rashford back on the right side. He's the one that got the goal against Brentford. He is obviously going to be a dangerous player that will have to be watched alongside a player like Bruno Fernandes, who is due for at least 3 temper tantrums, probably at 4 to 5. That'd be a good bet. I would take the over every single time. Europe doesn't count. That was my gut. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toffees. I appreciate that. I think that will, I think that will only help us, but at the same time, the way Casemiro's looked this season, it's almost, and now that the ban has apparently been lifted on referees not giving red cards to Everton, you almost would like to think, well, if Casemiro plays, maybe he'll lose his head again and get sent off, but who knows? Either way, it's one of those where it's late in the week, game's almost here. Now I start to get into my head that, we can do this. I get a little bit of optimism in me, and this week is no different. And it helps the fact that we have gotten draws the last 3 times going to Old Trafford. So I'm going to predict a win, because I'm never going to predict the draw publicly, even if I will bet on it. My heart does say 1-1 again, but I will go, my head says 1-1 again. My heart is going to say 1-0. I'm trying to think of who's going to get the goal. Now, I nailed the goal scorer this past game with Michael Keane. I said it for 2 weeks that Michael Keane was going to score. So I'd have to think for a bit and see I don't think James Garner will get a goal against his former club, although I think everybody would love to see that. But I will go for a player. Let's see. It's either going to be Damari Gray or Alex. Yeah, I will go for Damari Gray, actually. Damari Gray is the goal scorer, and Everton win 1-0 this weekend. And of course, we don't condone betting here on this site, but we do encourage you to check out the wonderful website of stake.com. And I'm sure they're offering some great deals on that. But I appreciate you guys. We should wind up Bruno Fernandes. He has a short fuse. Yeah, that's a case to play Neil Maupay up top, isn't he? Because you feel like he's one that can really get a rise out of somebody, which, by the way, I don't want people to forget. Neil Mope still exists. I know he's not a lot of everybody's favorite player by any means, but since we do have to make sort of an adjustment now, it wouldn't shock me if we did see Neil Mope in some form or fashion, especially for the people that want to drop Gray into the midfield, because let's just pretend like that happens, right? If Gray comes into the midfield, we'll just say on the right side for now, you move Iwobi into a central midfield position. You put Ellis Sims up top. Yes, I understand that's a full squad, but Ellis Sims is not going to play 90 plus minutes, plain and simple. That's just not going to happen. He's a young lad. I think Dyche has shown that he's not going to do that. So we will see Neil Mope in some form or fashion if that formation does take place. Or even if it's a 4-4-2 with Gray and Sims up top, I still think we still see Neil Mope at some point. And honestly, no matter what you think of him or Tom Davis or whoever, Dominic Calvert, I don't care. If they're wearing a blue shirt, I'm going to support them, and I encourage all of you to do the same. But just my 2 cents. We'll see. 1-0 with Sims scoring the goal. I like it. McNeil on the board. Can't ever complain about that. The way McNeil's looked lately, I wouldn't bet against that by any means, because to say he's had a little bit of a resurgence is an understatement, and I especially have loved to see him get on the score sheet. So 1-0 will be my prediction. They were fined by the FA today. I have not seen this. Was that for a little bit of a fracas, or what was that about? Some referee banter? I missed that. If anyone knows that, let me know what it is. But that's all I have on my notes. United haven't set the world on fire in terms of goals. I don't think that there will be a ton of goals in this game. Now, if I get proven wrong and it ends up being 3-3 or 4-4, as it has been in years past, then I have no problem with that either. All that means is we have the ability to score goals, and I'm very much okay with that going into the rest of the season. But I don't see it being much of a goal-scoring game. I think at most United might find a 2-1 win. But I don't even think that we're going to allow 2 goals. Hope I'm wrong. We have done that away because, again, even though we've scored 2 goals in the last 2 games away, we've also allowed 2 goals in both of those games as well. What I'm afraid of is, I won't even say that. I almost jinxed this just now, like I did the other day. You're welcome, because I caught it. Everton to win Saturday, Tommy Fleetwood to win Sunday. Oh, we got a good bet going on there, have we? I keep forgetting. I'm not huge into golf, but I do know it's Masters week, and it's one of those where no matter the sport, I will watch their biggest moment or their playoffs or whatever the case. So in golf, I'll try to tune on the majors. Usually it's later in the week, maybe on a Sunday, because it's hard for me to watch 4 days straight. It's hard for me to watch 1 day straight of golf, quite honestly, but 4 days is just out of the question. Tennis, I'm the same way, though. I'll watch the majors. I do like to watch the important matches, and I guess golf's no different. But it's just, I don't know. Everybody says, well, if you go, it's different, right? It's a different atmosphere. It's a different feeling. I don't get it. I can't get into it because it seems boring. But a lot of people say that about football, and here we are talking about it. So it is what it is. But I will wrap this up today. Everton are, I don't know at this point what Everton we're going to get in terms of goal scoring, but what we do know and what we found out the last few weeks is at least we're going to get an Everton that are going to fight. They're going to show the grit. They're going to show the effort. And more importantly than any of it, in my opinion, if they do concede, they're not going to give up. And that's something that we've been missing for a long, long time. What's up, the Blues? We are just about to get out of here, my friend. I appreciate everybody joining. Hey, if you liked what you saw, please throw us a like, subscribe, and share, and all that good stuff. Feel free to leave your score predictions in the comments. I'm not sure if we're going to have anything tomorrow. I'll likely get the Daily Digest cranked back up tomorrow, as we will have a lot of live content on Saturday. We'll have a pre-match build up on Saturday when the team news comes out an hour before the United match. That'll be 11:30 local time, 5:30 a.m. my time. Looking forward to it. Going to have about 2 or 3 coffees right here, which should be a lot of fun. But we'll have a pre-match then. We'll have a post-match, of course, after the game as well, where hopefully we'll all be celebrating and toasting to the first win at Old Trafford since 2013. But we shall see on that. We can't get battered. Goal difference is crucial. I don't think there's any scenario where we're going to get battered. And I know people will say, well, it was just a few games ago where we saw Arsenal. I think that Arsenal was an anomaly. It was a midweek game against the side, the top of the table, that were on top form. I don't think United are anywhere near that in terms of form. And I given the fact that we've had a week in between games, I don't see this game getting very much out of hand. But I certainly hope to be right on that one. But we shall see. But thanks for everybody for joining us. Please keep a lookout for the Daily Digest tomorrow. And then on Saturday morning, I will see you bright and early for the pre-match build-up. I am your buddy Domino Chris. Thanks for joining me. And as always, up the Toffees, baby.